Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving,
I don't wanna take advice from fools.
you always won every time you placed a bet.
Money, that's what I want.
I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com and America's only Grandmaster Handicapper. We are going to take a look at the SEC West preview, but unlike those cookie-cutter previews that you're going to get just about anywhere, we're not necessarily looking at who's going to win the conference and who's going to finish second, third, fourth. We are going to take a look at some things that you want to keep an eye on from a betting standpoint, overvalued and undervalued teams. Do you want to begin your life as a professional gambler? No package has done that more than Joe Duffy's Picks. Early Bird Special, get every single football pick. Preseason through the Super Bowl, college and pro. Of course, that includes the bowls, the regular season. Every single football pick we make in 2015-2016 season. Joe Duffy's Picks, OffshoreInsiders.com, just $1,499. And again, so many pro gambling careers commenced with that. Don't want to brag too much about our, well, yes we do, but we have an incredible renewal rate. You're going to be with us for many years to come. OffshoreInsiders.com. Alabama, they have only two starters back on offense, including being unproven at quarterback and wide receiver. Going to be much more run-oriented at the beginning of the year. As obvious as it seems, I do think they will be an under team early in the year, not just because they are dominant defense. Of course, Nick Saban each and every year manages to recruit 2, 3, 4 deep. But at the skill positions, they have plenty of question marks. I look for them. They would be very conservative running the ball and certainly an under team. And you know what? Probably going to be a good go against it early in the year. I think they could be somewhat like Florida State was last year, where they're going to be winning games straight up, but not covering. Auburn. Will Muschamp, of course, new defensive coordinator at Auburn, wants to improve on their defensive numbers. He's somebody who's got a great defensive mind. For all his failures at the University of Florida, Florida had tremendous defenses, just like they did at Texas. I do think Auburn is going to be a much better defensive team, and just with that change alone, I do expect them to be a pretty good under team this year. New quarterback Jeremy Johnson, expected, though, to make that seamless transition from Nick Marshall. Still, you're replacing one stud with a potential other stud. Let's keep a close eye on that and see if Johnson does live up to his billings. Two super talented running backs, though unproven at this level, so we might see even more of a running game. I know there's no question in my mind Will Muschamp's going to campaign for a little bit more ball control on the offensive side of the ball, and I do think he's got some cachet. I think we're going to see a slightly less wide open Auburn team in previous years. So with those high totals at the beginning of the year and likely an improved defense, I do think we're going to struggle. We're going to sweat out some unders, but we will get some unders early in the year. Ole Miss, they're in that category. They're going to be the hunted rather than the hunter, coming off of a great year. Quarterback Chad Kelly had some off-the-field issues, but he's an enormously talented guy. They come back with a strong offensive line. The talent is there. Remember, they had a spectacular recruiting class in 2013, so Ole Miss has really done what they were expected to do. They've been getting better each and every solitary year, but Ole Miss is the poster child. One of the reasons I don't like to make substantial futures bets, because, as I've explained many times, even some of the sharpest gamblers have both outwardly and tacitly admitted to me they've been biased by some of their preseason bets. Ole Miss is a team that could go either way. Maybe this is the building block year with their 2013 recruiting class means they could be, an SEC champion. Or, again, much higher expectations this year. They're going to have the target on their chest. And Ole Miss, as much as any team, I think could finish anywhere from towards the top or towards the bottom of this very talented SEC West. That's one of the reasons why the best handicappers, led by Joe Duffy at OffshoreInsiders.com, make week-to-week adjustments. LSU, they do have talented wide receivers, but a questionable quarterback situation means the offense is going to be a box of chocolates. I look for LSU this year to have a good week, 1 week offensively, and a terrible week the next week, vice versa. You know how a lot of squares out there, they'll say stuff like, I watched LSU last week, their offense was great. And then I bet on them, and then their offense was terrible. Well, the top handicappers know how to predict unpredictability. And we think LSU's offense is definitely going to be just that. They're going to look like a great offense one week, terrible offense the next week, great wide receivers. Can somebody get it to them? And of course, you know, Leonard Fournette, this should be his breakout year. He was a little bit feast or famine last year. He showed some flashes, but he is still a very talented running back. Everybody, all my top sources say he's really worked on his strength and conditioning. So I do think that LSU at times is going to have a spectacular offense, but they should have one heck of a running game, but they're just not going to be a very consistent offense. So we're going to see some high-scoring games followed by low-scoring games. Likely will be, I think, all in on under team, but they're going to flat out explode in some games, and it might be one of those cases where those of you who like to bet halftime totals, if it's low scoring in the first half, bet it over in the second half, or vice versa. Arkansas, look, we know that under Brett Bielema, they've been very competitive in their losses. They were a team that kept losing and covering the type of teams that the dichotomous spread and straight up teams that we like to exploit, and then all of a sudden, late last year, they started winning games. Won 5 of the final 6 games outright. Third-year starter Brandon Allen at quarterback. Now they got 2 1,000-yard rushers in Jonathan Williams and Alex Collins. Offensive line returns 4 starters. Now they don't have a game breaker at wide receiver, so I think that Arkansas is going to be kind of like the classic Wisconsin teams were under Bielema's mode, where they will be smash mouth. They get a lot of yards, maybe not necessarily score pretty quickly. Their defense is a work in progress, but they have the ability to improve as the year goes on. So I really think as the year goes on, especially, Arkansas is going to kind of resemble those Wisconsin smash mouth teams with a good defense, great ball control, good offense, but not necessarily an explosive one. Texas A&M, we know one of the big stories is John Chavis brought in as defensive coordinator. He comes from LSU, getting all kinds of money. Head coach Kevin Sumlin stressed defense and the running game improvements. So keep in mind what we say all along. The key to handicapping totals isn't just offensive and defensive competence. It is pace. I do think Texas A&M is going to have a higher run ratio this year than in previous years. I don't think they're going to snap the ball quite as much. I do think the defense will improve, at least the defensive numbers. But again, most importantly, if they slow down the pace, that means more unders. I think much sort of like what we said about Auburn, probably going to have some high totals at the beginning of the year, and we'll sweat out some unders. But I do think that Texas A&M will be a little bit more of an under team. The big question, though, we know that Kyle Allen, very talented at quarterback, and if someone likes to throw the ball, so that is something to watch. And another example why we want to make those week-to-week adjustments is someone really going to slow down the offense a little bit, especially with a talented quarterback to work with. Mississippi State, well, again, they're probably the poster child of a team coming off of a great year. Going to be very tough to repeat, much like their rivals from the Egg Bowl, Mississippi. A lot of things went right for them, especially early in the year. Dak Prescott returns at quarterback. Stud running back, though, Josh Robinson, he is gone. They lost 3 starters and some key backups on the offensive line. Secondary is very questionable. Minus 7 starters on offense, 8 on defense. It's really kind of all on Prescott. I think that Mississippi State is going to be a big go-against team this year. Going to prove to be a one-year wonder. I think they're the rivals, the Rebels, are going to be the better team in the state of Mississippi this year. But more importantly, we're talking about spread-wise. I do think there will be some pretty good opportunities to go against Mississippi State, especially early in the year. Got a lot more previews coming along. Remember, Joe Duffy's Picks OffshoreInsiders.com, the greatest sports service, the greatest handicapping service of all time. We've been winning, going back to the Scorephone days since June 1st, 1988. Joe Duffy's Picks, www.offshoreinsiders.com.